What's going on, traders? We got a lot to talk about. You're not going to want to miss this banger video. Let's get straight into it. So right now we are looking at the ES daily time frame, and we talked about this in the last video where we wanted to pay attention to that 5,920 level. And one thing I told you guys to do was not to panic if we start to see some type of rejection from this level prior to market open, meaning after hours. And that's exactly what happened. We ended up rejecting. We go down to the 4-hour time frame. And what happened overnight prior to open today, we saw a rejection happen right here. We started to retest this area and then we rejected. And then look what happened down here. Bears got absolutely trapped and bulls stepped in. We wicked back to the upside. We formed a morning star pattern, very strong bullish pattern. We formed an engulfing bullish candle, and not only that, but we are mounting this level. We're mounting 5,920, 5,930. Now obviously this can change. The 4-hour candle is not yet complete, but things are looking good for more upside. So congratulations if you paid attention in that video. Now in regards to where we can go from here, I do think that we are going to see a move back towards previous highs at around 6k. Now can we see new highs? That is the question. Really tough to say right now, but I will say that things are looking good to revisit 6,000, where we can form either some type of lower high scenario and then start to head back down, or we form some type of double top scenario where we go a little bit higher, a little bit back above the rising wedge, form some type of double top scenario and then break down. So those are the two scenarios that I'm looking at. I'm not too optimistic about new highs, but they're very much possible still. So we'll see. And that's all I have for the ES. So let's look at the NQ. 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 This is why I tell you guys, look at both the futures and the ETFs, because when we go over triple Qs, you're going to see a major difference in both of them. And so right now we're looking at NQ. Let's go down to the 4-hour time frame. And as you guys can see, we formed a double bottom, and I believe I talked about this in the last video. But what's interesting and what happened here is that we broke down, right? And hopefully you guys can see this huge wick to the downside, and I even mentioned this in the Discord. I'm like, man, we're breaking down, but if we can form some type of double bottom or another bottom here, then there is room for upside. And that's exactly what happened. You have your bottom here, you have your bottom here. And what do I say about double bottoms? They need to be confirmed by breaking the neckline. And we broke that neckline. We broke it clean, okay? At around 20,700, we broke that neckline, and things are looking good for more upside. And so we've been talking about this potential move for quite some time, where this area right here, it's actually market for you guys. This area right here needs to be liquidated. Okay, so that's where I think we are going. That's where I imagine we are going, and things are looking good for more upside. So the move that I'm looking at in regards to the short term, and obviously this can change, but right now I'm looking at a move back towards that 21k, 20,980 range. Okay, and so this isn't news or anything. We mentioned this before. We talked about this potential move before, and I did say at some point in time in Q, where the market is going to want to clear out this upside and really clear this area out. And in the last video, remember, I told you guys that we need to retest where these guys are. We never retested this area again. This is the only time we tested this area, and so we need to get back up here. And that's what I imagine the NQ is trying to do. We need to get back up here, retest that 21k, potentially break back down, or we start heading higher, right? We start heading higher, form some type of double top scenario, and see what happens from there. Or another scenario is that we just break out and head towards newer highs at around 21,500. So those are your three scenarios to look out for. Right now, the first scenario is the focus, which is around 21k, and then we'll see what happens from there. But really good setup. The double bottom was clean, and this is how bears get trapped. Okay, this is how bears get trapped. So let's look at the triple Qs, and let me show you guys exactly what a bear trap looks like. This is what a bear trap looks like. So let's go to the daily time frame, because this looks kind of crazy, right? So this is what a bear trap looks like. All right, this is why I tell you guys, look at both the triple Qs and the NQ. Look at both the futures and the ETFs, because sometimes they lie. Okay, one may be lying and one may be telling you the truth, and so far the NQ is the one that's telling you the truth. And so if we look at the triple Qs, as you guys can see, I do imagine that bears, they bought puts right here, guaranteed. They bought puts right here, and chances are they're going to get trapped again. All right, I could be wrong, but so far we've been on the right street. Okay, so things are looking pretty bad if you got puts right here. And I guarantee, they're like, oh, this is the rising wedge. It's retesting the rising wedge. Surely it's going to reject from this point. I mean, it's retesting the support right here. I mean, not support, resistance right here. Surely it's going to drop tomorrow from this point. And if you look at the NQ, look where the NQ is. Look what the NQ is doing. You got a double bottom. You broke the neckline. I don't know. It's not looking good for bears. It's looking like a bear trap all over again. And we're constantly seeing that happen. Bear trap happened right here, right? Another bear trap happened on this candle right here. So as long as we're below this area and you're not paying attention to what the NQ is doing, you're going to continue to get trapped, okay? Now, is there potential for downside from this point? Absolutely. But at this point right now, until the NQ is showing some type of agreement with the triple Qs, I would not put my money on puts just yet. All right. So the move that I'm looking for in regards to the NQ is a move back towards this 508 level. Pretty much where this gap fill is. I mean, I guess that goes without saying. That's really not something hard to discover or anything like that. But you have two gaps right here. I mean, you have a gap right here. We call this an island reversal. But you have a gap right here, another gap right here. So I do imagine that's going to be our first target at around 508. And then we potentially see some type of sell-off from that point. Now, the question is, does Nvda earnings cause that move? I can't say for sure, but we'll take a look at Nvda and see if we can gauge where it can potentially go. But right now, things are still looking bullish. The ES looks bullish. The NQ looks bullish. Triple Qs is the only thing that looks like it has potential for a bearish sign. But right now, 3 heads are better than 1. And so I'm going to go with what the NQ and the ES is telling me. We look at the SPY. SPY, this is what I was talking about in the last video. Look at the clean bounce off of this support right here. I showed you guys this, right? Very clean bounce. And remember, I showed you guys the ES was showing that it was somewhat bearish, right? It was at resistance, and we can go back to the ES and look at it, right? But right here, this level right here, remember, prior to this video, we were right here at resistance at around 5,920, but the SPY was sitting on support that whole time. So one, the ES was lying while the SPY was telling you the truth. And this is why, again, you look at both of them, okay? Because one will tell you a lie, the other will tell you a truth, all right? So SPY looking really, really good here. You hit support at around 585, 584, give or take, and now you're bouncing. You got you somewhat of a bullish engulfing candle. I see no reason to be bearish at this point. I think we're just going to start filling this gap. There is potential for maybe a move towards previous highs. And if we are looking at a newer target towards the upside, I would look at that 605 level and a retest on at the top of this daily channel. Now, in case you are new to the YouTube channel and you're wondering what channel I'm talking about, one, this is the 4-hour channel, this 4-hour rising channel right here, which we rolled back into and pretty much broke down. But if we zoom out on the daily time frame, you guys see that we've been trading in this range for a very long time, right? We rejected here, bounced here, rejected here, bounced here, and then we ended up heading back to the top of this channel and rolling over, rejecting all over again. And so there is potential for us to retest it all over again. And right now, if we're talking about newer highs and a new target towards the upside, we're looking at 605. But first, the first target we need to focus on is this gap fill. Okay, that's going to be the first target we focus on, and the gap fill is at around 592, 593, give or take. So that's what I would be looking for in regards to the SPY. In regards to downside, you just want to see a break below this 584 level, and then that point, chances are we're heading towards 577 gap fill. But right now, everything's looking fine. Everything's looking somewhat bullish, and the only thing that's looking, I guess, kind of bearish, if you want to argue it, is triple Qs. So that's what I'm looking at in regards to the SPY. Bitcoin. Bitcoin looks really, really good. Okay, Bitcoin is finally making that move. Again, still not the cleanest, I will say, and we're looking at the 4-hour time frame. But remember, I told you guys about the symmetrical triangle here, right? We broke out a symmetrical triangle, we consolidated, which I told you guys that I just absolutely hated, but we ended up finally making some type of move towards the upside. It looks like we are somewhat retesting support, or our previous support, so you will have your support somewhere around here, between here, Between here and about 91,500, somewhere around there is what you're looking at. But right now, Bitcoin is looking fine. I told you guys I had a price target about 95K. Between 95K, highs we're looking at is about 99K. And today we reached about 94K. So pretty close, okay? So really don't have nothing bad to say about Bitcoin, although it is forming some type of bearish engulfing candle. It is the 4-hour candle, so take it with a grain of salt, but I would definitely pay attention to this. If we start rolling over, that could be a bad sign, but for now, things are looking okay. They're not looking great. I would still like to see a much better breakout to the upside, but they're not looking bad or too bad either. So just pay attention to Bitcoin. It could be a leading indicator on what the market is potentially going to do in the near future. All right, so let's look at some stocks real quick. So let's look at Tesla. So Tesla, that 350 contract, I told you guys about this last video. That 350 contract, the whales are getting paid off that thing. All right, so once Tesla breaks 350, this thing can head as high as about 370. That's really all I have. I mean, it's not much to go off of here. I mean, it's just in the middle of nowhere. So that's really all I have. But I told you guys about that 350 contract that whales are just constantly loading premiums on. And so I do imagine that Tesla is still going to head there. I mean, we're pretty much right there, so why not? Tesla's going to head towards 350, break that 350, and then from there we could see a move as high as about 370. So that's what I'm looking at in regards to Tesla. Really don't have much else to say about it. Let's look at Amazon, because Discord members love Amazon, right? So we go down to the 2-hour time frame. We talked about this in the last video, and we talked about this falling wedge pattern, right? I mean, look at how clean this is, guys. And so I told you guys in the Discord about this retest right here. I don't know if you can see this wick, but there's a wick that's bouncing off, like clean bounce off the rising falling wedge. Super clean bounce. Perfect entry right here. And we traded Amazon today heading towards 205. If it can break this neckline at around 205, you're heading towards 210. Easy as that. And I do believe there's a gap on one of these time frames at around 210. Let's see. Yeah, so daily time frame, you have a gap at around 210, so I imagine that's where Amazon is going to try to go. The highs we're looking at, if we're talking about new highs, right? If we are really talking about new highs, maybe Nvidia earnings just absolutely like decimates the market and when I say decimate, I mean in a good way. It just sends the market skyrocketing to the upside. We can go as high as about 230 on Amazon, but if I'm lowballing it, I would say 210. If we're thinking Amazon can go higher than 220, but if we're being like really optimistic, I would say 230. But Amazon looks good. You just want to see that break of about 205 right here. You see it clear as day. You pretty much are just having a hard time getting past this area right here. And so once we break out of here, things are looking really good for Amazon. And then you can also argue that this is a double bottom. It's a pretty drawn out double bottom, but it's there. It's definitely something you can argue that's there. So you have a double bottom here, and then your neckline would be at around 205. So a very clean setup. Falling wedge pattern, double bottom, neckline, 205, breakout, heading towards 210. Easy money. So congratulations to Discord members who traded that with me. Absolutely banger of a play. And so let's keep it going. Let's look at Nvda. Let's finally look at Nvidia, and then we're going to look at the semiconductor ETF SMH, and then I'm going to let you guys get up out of here. All right, so Nvidia. So Nvidia's playing games here, and I warned you guys that this could be a trap just based off SMH and that piercing line pattern I was talking about. This is why you look at the ETFs. You look at the ETFs and the futures and the stocks. You look at everything all together. So a Discord member pointed out this pattern. On a daily time frame, you have a morning star pattern, people. This is a great sign for earnings. Very good sign for earnings. So if Nvidia pumps tomorrow, okay, if it pumps, I can't really say. I think it will be bullish. Okay, I think earnings will be good. So you have a morning star pattern. I mean, it's super clean. Your bearish candle, your doji, your huge bullish engulfing candle. I mean, you can't argue this. Okay, beautiful morning star pattern. One of my favorite patterns. Very rare pattern to find, but it's once it's there, you trade that thing. So I do imagine Nvidia is going to carry the market to the upside tomorrow, and we could be looking at some absolute good earnings if this just so happened to play out. And so I want you guys. We talk about the 4-hour time frame, and I want you guys right here about this possibly being somewhat of a bear trap. Okay, I wasn't like too convinced about it, but when we looked at SMH, right? When we looked at SMH had a bullish pattern. I was telling you guys that I wasn't a fan of where SMH is, but if we go to the daily time frame, this right here, okay, this is how you get trapped. This is why you look at everything, guys. You look at everything. Okay, this is how you get trapped. So look, we have us a rising wedge pattern, right? And so the average retail trader, the bearish traders, the perma bears, whatever the case may be, they were drooling at the mouth right here. They had to be, okay, drooling at the mouth, and I guarantee they just loaded puts. They're like, oh, semiconductors are gonna dump, right? But then look what happens. If you only looked at Nvidia, you probably got trapped. But if you looked at SMH, you had an idea that, okay, this might be an actual trap. I probably shouldn't trade it, or I should be looking for calls. You had you a piercing line pattern. Okay, bullish setup right on the break below the rising wedge. Absolute evil trap. Okay, and look what happened today. It played out. You're back within the rising wedge. And what do I tell you guys about rolling back into patterns? When you roll back into a pattern, chances are you're going to continue in that direction based on what type of pattern it is. And since we have a rising wedge pattern, chances are you're going to head higher. So right now, I'm looking at a move towards 248 at this gap fill. There's also a gap up here at around 258 as well. So things are looking good for Nvidia if we're looking at SMH. Nvidia has the morning star pattern, right? Nvidia has a morning star pattern. You have your piercing line pattern here. You have a gap that needs to be filled. You have two gaps, actually. You probably have more than that. I imagine there's a lot of fair value gaps. But not only that, okay, not only that, guys. Okay, not only that. Let's mark this out. And so this is why I'm kind of getting really optimistic about Nvidia earnings, right? Look at this. There's a huge gap right here. Not only is there a huge gap right here, this is a fair value gap on the weekly time frame. Okay, I don't have my fair value gaps up because they're kind of like getting out of control and they're just all over the place, because the market is just very illiquid all over the place, so it's just forming fair value gaps everywhere. But look at this. I mean, boom. If you head back towards the top of this rising wedge pattern, you're mitigating not only the fair value gap, but you're clearing out this gap as well. So if I'm sounding a little excited about Nvidia earnings, there's a reason why. Look at this setup. I mean, this is just beautiful. You have your piercing line pattern, right? You have multiple gaps to the upside. You're rolling back into this rising wedge pattern. Bulls stepped in. They stepped in here. And not only that, but you have a gap and a fair value gaps that needs to be mitigated to the upside. We talked about this before on the weekly time frame, but it's so perfect, right? It's so perfect. You have resistance all the way at the top of this rising wedge pattern. If this resistance was like outside of it, I wouldn't even look at it, right? I wouldn't even consider it. But the fact that it's falling in line within the rising wedge pattern, at the top of this rising wedge pattern, we could be looking at some really good Nvidia earnings coming up, guys. Do what you want with the information. It's earnings. It's a 50-50 gamble. But, I mean, the math is mathing. 2 + 2 = 4. I mean, it's all adding up here. So, things are looking really, really good, guys. So, definitely consider Nvidia earnings. We'll talk about it more after hours tomorrow and see what happens. But I'm really liking this. If you want to see if I'm going to play Nvidia earnings or how I'm going to play it, Discord link is in the description below. Things are looking really good. It's looking really optimistic, I'm not gonna lie. And that's really all I have for this video. If you have questions, comment your thoughts below. If you agree, let me know. If you disagree, let me know as well. Maybe I missed something. But always keep it respectful. And until the next video, traders, have a good one.